I have listened attentively and with respect of many of the speeches made here, and sometimes I have felt as if I was being buffeted by the ice winds of the Cold War. Coming from a warm country, I have shivered occasionally at these cold blasts. Speaking here in this assembly chamber, an old memory comes back to me in the fateful summer of 1938. I was a visitor at a meeting of the League of Nations in Geneva. Hitler was advancing then and holding out threats of war. There was mobilization in any parts of Europe, and the tramp of armed men was being heard. Even so, the League of Nations appeared to be unconcerned and discussed all manner of subjects except the most vital subject of the day. The war had not started then. A year later, it descended upon the world with all its thunder and destructive fury. After many years of carnage, the war ended and a new age was ushered in by the terrible experience of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Fresh from these horrors, the minds of men turned off thoughts of peace, and there was a passionate desire to put an end of war itself. The United Nations took birth on a note of high idealism embodied in the noble wording of the character. But there was also a realization of a state of the post war period, as it was therefore provision was made in the structure of the organization to balance certain conflicting urges. There were parameter members of the Security Council, and there was provision for unanimity amongst the great powers. All this was not very logical, but it represented certain realities of the world as it was, and a views of this we accepted them. At that time, large areas in Asia and even more so in Africa were not represented in the United Nations, and they were under colonial domination. Since then, the colonial part of the world has shrunk greatly, and we now welcome here many countries from America in their new freedom. The United Nations has become progressively more representative, but we must remember that even now it is not fully so. Colonialism still has its strong footholds in some parts of the world, and racialism are still prevalent, especially in Africa. The United Nations has often been criticized for its structure and for some of its activities.